Hello there. Welcome to episode 33 of Bow and Blade, a podcast brought to you by medievalists.net, your home for all things medieval on the internet. Bow and Blade gives you a seat at the bar as scholars of medieval warfare go beyond the Wikipedia articles to talk about the debates and questions that we're working on today. I'm Michael Livingston, Distinguished Professor at the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina.
And I'm Kelly DeVries, his professor of history at Loyola University, and at the moment out at the Air Force Academy. Start classes this week, and you can hear the planes behind me. So we've got students coming on campus, and they're out in the small planes. So
Yeah,
sorry about that, guys.
we'll see.
No one's bombing. No one's bombing Castillon.
Yeah.
We're not going to come up with something new on Castillon being bombed by the American.
This is the weird thing. We got some recordings. We have cannon fire going off in my background, and now we've got small planes buzzing by Kelly's office in other recordings. So, yeah, little Easter eggs for everybody there.
Had a lot of fun the last month since we saw each other at Leeds. I mean, that's we've done a podcast in between, but this is the first time we've actually seen each other.
Yeah. It was a busy summer. It's still summer. It's start of August as we're recording this, but we're both back in the States, and yeah, we were gone, both of us, for a very, very long time. It was like 5 weeks we were each over there. 6 weeks.
Yeah. Well, six for me.
Six for you. I mean, look, we love Europe. We love it.
Yeah.
But also, that's a long time.
I don't know. I hit the ground. Of course, I was stranded in New York, as one is nowadays.
These days, yeah.
Stranded in one New York. And I thought to myself, I'm walking around the neighborhood to get something to eat that night. Okay, I'm ready to go back.
You got to give it more time than that, man.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it was more time. It was like 2 hours.
2 hours. Okay, that's fair.
2 hours. But yes, it was a great summer. One of the things we're talking about today is going to be it's going to be referred to frequently by us being there. And this is going to be one of the sites that's freshest in our mind, I guess.
Yeah, and we actually during our live recording in Leeds, we did kind of briefly reference that we had gone to Castillon, and we are today going to talk about the Battle of Castillon in 1453, which is a fascinating battle in many regards, both for what it represents, for kind of the place it holds in history, fairly or not, and also for kind of trying to figure out what happened there, which, yeah, we've walked that field now, and so we have some opinions on it. But before we get to all that, and before we get into the literal weeds or falling into a ditch, as the case may be, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, we're in Bordeaux. I can't get too far from a great Bordeaux wine, a great Bordeaux red. And as the French do win this, I've got to go with Bordeaux red.
Yeah, I mean, this is shooting fish in a barrel or Englishmen in a field. One is going to have a Bordeaux because it's a Bordeaux.
It's a Bordeaux.
Yeah, because this is absolutely centered on Bordeaux. Really, this battle. It's Castillon, but this is about Bordeaux. Yeah. It's not far from Bordeaux, and Bordeaux's good wines.
It's good wines. There's no question. Bordeaux is, in my estimation, one of the great producers of wines down that. The grapes just seem to like the warmer weather and the nicer open air, and it was wonderful. Wonderful.
I mean, it's not just you. I mean, back then they were like, Bordeaux wine is good stuff. So,
and that's really a key. I mean, we should point that out at the very beginning. The reason why England was so interested in Gascony is not because they still wanted that piece of France for some land reasons. They wanted it for the wine. And it's often not realized that after wool, which was, of course, the big export for England, wine came second. The Gascon wine came second. And it came first to England. And so if you're in a court in England, you are not a beer drinker. You are a Gascon wine drinker.
I mean, they liked the title and all that to the land as well. But yeah, the economic impact of wine is absolutely forgotten by many people who talk about this period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, for that matter, a lot of people forget the economic impact of wool, but
Yes.
I think probably, as you said, more people recognize that than recognize the staggering amount of income that the crown was getting from the wine trade out of Bordeaux, out of Gascony, Aquitaine, and by this point, as we'll talk about in a second, Bordeaux, because it had been whittled down.
Not much else for the English.
Whittled down.
Yeah. And this is the last battle of the 100 Years' Wars. All of you out there, if you are do not have Castillon among the great battles of the 100 Years' War, that's probably because the English don't win. I'll let that plot go out early. Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert!
English don't win.
Yeah, This is for sure a like the kind of the end point of the so-called 100 Years' War. Kelly just he said the 100 Years' Wars. He's written about this as we shouldn't call it a single war. It's actually multiple wars. I've gone the other direction. And I'm writing a book now saying that we shouldn't call any of this the 100 Years' War because it's a 200 Years' War. But that's a fight for another time. But this Castillon is the end of an era to some degree or another, I guess is I think a decently rightful way to say this.
And not just because of the fact that the English will lose. The 100 Years' War is over. I mean, they still have Calais until 1558, but I think also the way that this battle is fought and the leadership on the French side. I mean, we're talking about an artilleryman, Jean Barrot, who has risen through the ranks. Lord Dunois, who is still the last person who had fought with Joan of Arc, who was in leadership in England. He had died just beforehand. He had been the one to conquer Normandy, reconquer Normandy. And they, instead of looking around finding a nobleman, as English certainly would have, they looked to Jean Barrot, who was the head of artillery, and made him the commander on the battlefield, which is to me a very interesting change in the military thinking and leadership in the times to come.
Yeah, it is, as you say, not how things previously kind of have been done, which is, well, you're the Earl of so-and-so and whatnot. And it's still being done on the English side. The English commander is going to be the Earl of Shrewsbury, he's first Earl of Shrewsbury, first Earl of Waterford, I think. And the
he's got so many.
Seventh Baron Talbot.
Only living. Yes. Yeah. And alive. I think that's more important as he's alive.
He's still kicking.
Because Talbot on this side, I did kind of a mistake there when I said that Dunois was the last one who fought with Joan. Talbot fought against Joan. So, we've really got an old war horse out on the battlefield. There were war horses out on the battlefield, but this one is a metaphorical old war horse, Henry Talbot, or John Talbot.
Yeah, John Talbot. And I mean, look, everybody will call him Old Talbot. He's in his mid-60s. I mean, he's not like, absolutely antiquated, but yeah, he's in his mid-60s and is old in the sense of he's been doing this a while. He's a veteran of many fights at the latter half of the 100 Years' War. So yeah, he is old in that sense for sure.
And we'll talk about it because he gets pulled back into the service on this as well. This is a rendition, shall we say? Henry VI looking around. Can anybody fight? Anybody lead troops anymore?
Anybody do it?
How about it?
You do it.
Anybody do it?
So let's backtrack, really quick. I mostly want to talk about the battle probably because I think you and I are probably going to have quite a bit to say. But 100 Years' War going super good for the English. Agincourt happens. Good stuff there from Henry V, 1415. Things are really looking pretty smart, and then it all kind of falls apart. Joan of Arc has a major role to play in that. Kelly's written several books about that. Go buy them. They're very good. There goes
Henry V dying,
Henry V
you
biting it.
know,
Yeah, so huge.
yeah, in 1522. I mean, that really fouls everything up. But then Joan coming back, I also see this new generation that comes in. So the ones that will be fighting for the 30 years after Henry V dies on the French side are individuals who just are, had not fought at Agincourt. This is a new breed of French soldier and a French leader. And because we're often so focused on England, we don't recognize that the French have kind of remade their leadership roles, remade their military. They're not afraid of taking people away who are not competent and leaving people in, like Lord Dunois and Jean Barrot and others, to fight the battles. But the English are not, and that's one of the things I think it really needs to be is often forgotten when we look at the end of the Hundred Years' War. The English are really in a rut as far as leadership is concerned and competent leadership. They haven't really had any for a long time.
And I mean, look, some of this is, you could say this is really smart on the French side, but also some of it's necessary. Agincourt wiped out a lot of dudes. Like, they lost
Yeah,
a big swath of leadership there. And granted, that had happened before at Poitiers, at Crécy. But I think this really does break a kind of model of warfare, a model of leadership that France had for
yeah,
generations. And it's dead now. And as you said, they sort of shift, forced to do so, have to do that shift, and it works hugely in their favor. And on the flip side, England seems to think like, hey, we just keep doing what we've been doing, baby, and we're all good.
yeah,
And that's, this is something that's kind of a bigger discussion than we can do right here. But I mean, this is something we face a lot in military situations, period, that the folks in leadership are in leadership because they did good in the last war. And so they're like, well, let's just keep doing that, right? And the enemy's like, no, we didn't do so good in the last war, so we've changed everything we're doing.
yeah,
And you're always in
yeah.
this kind of catch-up mode. It's very difficult to be flexible in those kind of worlds. So yeah, here the things start going bad for the English, and it's a catastrophic rollback that takes 2 decades really.
Yeah, it does. The English have victories in there. We'll talk about some of these in the next few. I mean, in the episodes in the future, where the English will come back after the losses, all those losses on the Loire, with Joan Round and so forth. But by 1448, I would say even earlier, but by 1448, the French start just sweeping things up, going right through Normandy, going through Gascony, and this is the culmination. They really don't have anything more than Bordeaux at this point.
Yeah, I mean it's when you think about the height that they had been at to what they're at now, it's unbelievable what a difference that this has happened here.
Yeah,
So that by this point, we're down to Bordeaux. I mean, Bordeaux is nice, Bordeaux is lovely, Bordeaux is a great port, but you want more than Bordeaux.
yeah,
Henry would like to have more than. This is Henry the sixth at
six.
this point. He would like to have more than Bordeaux. Can somebody get in there and turn the tide, or at the very least, stem the bleeding? Right? Can somebody
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
Bordeaux from falling as well?
Because this is one of the questions. I remember you and me and Bob Bosom Savage on the battlefield, and one of the questions we're standing on the battlefield is what does Talbot think he's doing? I mean, it's so much a smaller force, the English force is it, and why has he come out to accept the fight? Why not sit behind the walls of Bordeaux? Some of which are still there, and you can see how powerful those walls were at Bordeaux. And he doesn't. He chooses to come out to no man's land, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. We're gonna have to get into this. I mean, this is such a because I still got nothing that makes much sense for what Talbot is thinking. It is a absolutely amazing thing that happens here. But
Yeah, I've got a couple of ideas, but I will when we get to that point, I'll throw them out, and then I'll be interested to hear what others might think.
All right.
So letters come in, please. Letters,
Letters come in.
give us.
Yeah. So Talbot gets sent to Bordeaux. Stop the bleeding. Can we like salvage something here? In 1453, this results in this battle in the middle of July, the 17th of July. 17th of July, 1453. The Battle of Castillon. If you're looking for this on a map, it's Castillon-le-Bataille now, for obvious reasons. It's a good time when the place gets renamed for it. The Battle of Castillon. Look for Castillon the Battle on your map, and you'll find it. That is the town where this happens. Now, it's not itself any kind of major anything, really. Which is your first kind of oddity of why this is happening where it is, right?
There's a monastery in the town. It's a smaller village at that point, but they don't even fight there. They move out on the fields, about 10 kilometers outside of Castillon, and along the river is the way that Talbot approaches, not on the river on boats, but on the river and marching from Bordeaux. His opinion. Now, this is one I'm still a little bit wondering about who sets themselves up first there. So is this
there's no
Bureau
question
setting
the French
do? You think it's the French do?
The French.
So Talbot is reacting.
So Talbot marches out of Bordeaux, heading out for this French force that's going to be out there under Bureau. He goes from Bordeaux to Libourne, which is a decent little town there, which is on the Dordogne. Is able to cross the Dordogne there. So, okay, we got good freedom of movement. And from there, he marches east towards where Bureau is going to be, which is towards Castillon. And Bureau is about 1 mile. Well, if everything's correct about where the battle is, which we don't have any reason to doubt this, but I'm just going to say tradition.
Well, we'll tell them why we don't think.
Well, but tradition is 1 mile east of Castillon, Bureau has an encampment, and Talbot decides to hit that encampment.
Yeah. It's and this is where we have that first question come up. Why?
Yeah.
Why are you going out to meet the French army? What do you think you're going to do? Unlike other battles where the ones of the 100 Years' War are to me are very fascinating because you've got purpose behind them. Sometimes the purpose isn't always there. So evidently, like, why in the hell is Henry V taking only a very few soldiers in to fight this enormous French army at Agincourt? That one, okay. I think he had an arrow that nicked his brain there somewhere.
Hey, I explained that one in my book, Agincourt, Battle of the Scarred King, coming soon. Pre-order now.
But Talbot, the same reason. I mean, why is he coming out to meet? If he wants to hang on to Bordeaux, why not just simply sit behind the walls and make Bureau? Now, Bureau has cannons. He is that's what his specialty is. And maybe the point is not to make Bureau take Bordeaux by siege. I don't know. Anyway, we'll get to.
Yeah, I mean it's a fair question. I mean, this is a perfectly good time to to talk about it, right? What is he going to do? The people, the English in the Dordogne Valley are saying, like, get out here and help us, right? You're here to do that. Come help us. There's a French army here. You got to do something, and it. So there's a matter of kind of honor or whatever. We need to keep the loyalty of the people. So, all right, let's do it. it also seems like he doesn't know what Bureau has. Like
Uh,
there's a stunning lack of knowledge of basic like recon
yeah,
to know what he's
I don't know,
facing.
and that may be the people out in that region, the ones you just referred to, that may not be that may just be that they're not as tied to what they had been for so long, which is the English side. But now they really do read the writing on the wall. The fall of Normandy was huge. It took 3 years. It was huge, and then they've just been sitting there, expecting to become French. I mean, so only the most ardent Gascons are going to be disappointed uh, by going from England to France. I think if you're a peasant in the field, nobody really cares. You know,
Well, yeah, I mean they're not a big deal, but I mean we do know that there's this call, come help us. You know, the French are here, come help us. So he is responding to that for sure. But you know the way he gets out there, he outpaces his main force. Talbot does.
yes.
So he's ahead of his main crew, which is okay. That's a failure. You shouldn't be pulling that far. You're ahead of your ahead of your main force, and you should know what's out there. It's just so bizarre to me that he doesn't know. I mean, he knows Bureau is out there, but he doesn't seem to know what Bureau has, how strong Bureau is. By the time we get to their actual encounter on the battlefield, it's very
That
strange.
and It is very strange, and I think for two reasons. I'm still, I want to go back into the sources, look at them again. I wrote on this battle a long, long time ago, so I'm looking at the various sources through memory of that time, because the one question is why doesn't he know, as you pointed out, and it's not just that he doesn't know what is in Bureau's force. He does know where it is, but what does that mean about his spy networks? The English have always seemed to know exactly whom they were facing because they had locals they could pay off to give them intelligence. He doesn't have that. Is nobody interested in the King's sterling at this point? I mean, why won't they? Why doesn't he have scouts? Why doesn't he have spies to say that? But also, why doesn't he reconnoiter better? Because Bureau's not moving. He's not saying, "Oh, I'm going to play sneaky run behind a hill, and then and never let you know what's what in this." I mean, he's out in the open.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, if the French encampment is indeed where everybody believes it is, and again, we don't have any reason really just to believe that's not the case. It's like next to the main road. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not, again, it's not, as Kelly said, it's not hidden. It's not like, oh, it's over in the secret dale. No, it's like right there, and it's like a mile out of town. This town that's saying, "Hey, come help us." Like they've got to know what's there, and somehow Talbot doesn't know or knows and decides to do this anyway. There are stories. The sources say, some of the sources, I should say, some of the sources claim that Talbot or his informants see kind of like a cloud of dust from the French encampment or from that direction. And they believe that this means that the French are departing. And if so, well then okay, Talbot's thinking, let me run them down. Like, if they're kind of departing, I can roll them up from behind, right? Which would be, indeed a good move, right? If you can catch your force as they are, disembark, as they're leaving, right? They are
right,
taking down their
right.
encampment, moving. If you can roll them up, man, that is awesome. But like, you should
Yeah.
know for sure that that's what you're doing before you try to do it.
And if that was to have happened, Bureau's cannons would have been in the last group, so he would have been bringing the cannons off the field in wagons, and he would have had his train as usual in as he's retreating. I would have been in the back, and you can understand. Well, that is an incentive to go capture the arsenal of the opposing forces there. But I'm not satisfied with that. I still doesn't give me the answer. And so the ones, I mean, seriously, we were sitting there on the battlefield,
Yeah.
the three of us. Well, we should say the four, because the drone at this point is a person.
Yes.
The
That
drone,
was.
Mike brought his drone. It's up in the air, flying around the whole battlefield and everything. We're getting pictures from it, and we're just asking these questions. Is Talbot just being stupid? I mean, this cannot win. This battle cannot be won the way that it begins. Really,
Yeah.
it's and maybe he's got in his mind, oh, Agincourt, that was one with only a small force against a big one.
Yeah.
That was one, by good leadership.
Yeah.
But somebody should have been pulling his sleeve and saying, listen, Lordy boy, you're not Henry.
Yeah, you're not. That was a really different situation. Yeah, and to kind of like set the stage for why this is also peculiar. One point is, as we kind of alluded to, but haven't said directly, Bureau has a lot more men. He's got a lot more men, and he's got a lot of cannon. And Talbot's got not. And so that's a problem. Talbot is hitting an encampment. And an encampment, it means like you are prepared for the defense, right? So you're going to have, some kind of field fortification of where you're at. You've chosen a position that is defensible. So you're already, the defender's at an advantage if they are in an encampment, provided you don't shock them and surprise them.
Yeah.
So if they know you're coming, that's not the best idea. The other thing here, though, is the topography. And here I'll say, if you look at a map, this is going to be a lot easier to kind of follow. I'm going to explain this as best I can. But the topography is really important.
Very important.
Very important. Castillon-le-Bataille sits on the Dordogne River. Big river. All right. Beautiful river. Gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah. Just beautiful. There is a smaller river that runs into the Dordogne just east of Castillon. That little river is the Gironde. All right. Or Gironde, I don't know. Did you? Gironde is how they pronounce it locally. Yeah. All right, so Gironde. So we got the Gironde running into the Dordogne River. There is a maybe a bridge, if not a ford, at the point where they meet. All right, and that's where the road today goes. There's a camping area there if you would like to go camping.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, and this is over the Gironde. The Bordeaux or the Dordogne you can't get across. That would have to be a ferry. There's no bridge there.
There might have been a bridge at Castillon-le-Bataille. I don't think we know that. Do we?
But that's still, yeah.
But yeah, but anyway, that's in the town, right? So yeah, out here, there's this little way across this smaller river, just as it runs into the bigger river. And so you have this kind of wedge of land that is caught between the littler river of the Gironde and the larger river of the Dordogne, about a mile east of Castillon. So am I good so far, Kelly?
Yeah, I think you're good.
Okay.
I think you're describing it very well.
Okay, here's the thing. Everybody says, and every source we've got, like tradition, etc., says that the French are encamped in a position that stretches along the smaller river. So that is protecting one side of their position. Their northern side of the encampment is protected by that smaller river. And then they are taking up about a third of the distance, something like that, towards the Dordogne. There's the frontage of their encampment.
Roman road behind them.
And there's a Roman road on the other side of the Gironde. So
yes.
Yeah, so they're on this little. There's this little river, and then there's the Roman road. If you look at satellite photography, you look at Google Earth or whatever, you can actually see this amoeba-looking shape that cuts through, cuts in the middle of a forest, a bit of trees. They're planted trees. You can see they're nice lined up. But there's this kind of shape on the landscape. Clearly, it's a ditch. And many people have said that is a ditch dug by the French. Many historians have said that. So it's actually the first thing we wanted to look at when we got to the battlefield was let's go check out this thing. Because so many people said, look, you can see the field fortification. You can see they dug this ditch, which would be, yeah, dig a ditch. Great. Absolutely. Right. You dig a ditch, pile the earth on the inside of the ditch, right? Maybe put wood on top of it.
Barricade.
Yeah. And that's a legit field fortification. Standard practice back to Rome and beyond, right? This is a great way to do it. It's a funny looking shape though for this.
Yes. It wouldn't be if somebody's purposely setting out. Well, first of all, the Romans would never do it. They would never. Theirs would have been a nice rectangular thing, plan way back in Rome and used for the last 400 or 500 years. But even you take a look at this and you can say, well, medieval field fortifications don't seem to take this shape either. And that's when I think it became, and it's not just us who thought this, but it's become pretty evident that this is where Bureau established his field fortification, just along that ditch.
But he didn't.
What's the problem?
He didn't dig the ditch.
He didn't dig the ditch.
He didn't dig the ditch because
So we can't say his diggers were just off kilter or drunk or something.
They would have to be drunk. And first, this ditch is like a mile long. I've measured it. It's about a mile long. This ditch, it's not a friggin' ditch. It is a former. It's a dry stream bed, is what it is. It's a former stream bed on the landscape. Which explains why it looks like it was designed by drunk man, because nature is drunk. It is nevertheless an impressive feature in the landscape, and I know that
Yes, you do.
because I walked into it.
If there's a ditch, first of all, you've got to understand this. This is the third site we've come across where there's a ditch, and Mike just goes, "Oh, down in it I go."
Hey, baby, you got to know how deep it is. Like, let's see.
Yes, it was a little deeper than you thought.
It was a little deeper than I expected. I mean, most of these ditches, they're full of growth in them, right? So you're like, well, see how deep it is. Let's jump in. Like I'll hit the bottom. So let's find out. And then how hard is it to climb out? Well, let's find out. I'll have to climb out. Yeah,
but you should do that with a hurt shoulder.
Oh yeah, my shoulder was all messed up. Which would have been fine, except that I kind of landed awkwardly and tried to catch my balance, and I think I screamed. But anyway, I'm fine. It's fine. Whatever.
Yeah. I've been able to scream there since 1453, but that's okay.
It was research. Whatever.
It was research.
So that's what we did. There is this stream bed there. It's still there. I would not want to be trying to run across the fields and cross it. It would suck very much. So our assumption is, if this is indeed the location of the field camp, which again we have no reason to disbelieve that.
No reason. But at the same time, nobody's ever done any archaeology to confirm it either.
Well, there's been a few surveys and nothing found. Is probably the best way to put that. Yeah, but nothing's been found there. There are some swords that were found in the river that people have associated with the battle, but we don't know if they should be associated with the battle, nor do we know where they were in the river. Yeah. Terribly unhelpful.
There's a large number of them. They seem to have been put together in a barrel or something like that and fell into the river. It's the large number of them that is of interest more than anything. And I don't doubt they came from the battle, but they would have come afterwards.
Yeah, so. It tells us basically nothing other than a battle was near Castillon, which we knew.
Right. We did know.
We knew that.
Important one.
But yeah, we have no reason to disbelieve this, though we also don't have firm evidence. If this is the right location, Bureau's got himself a really good position, right? He is, well in a great position with this ditch. If maybe he dug it deeper in spots, right, or something like that, he could have easily done that. But even just using the natural landscape itself, it's pretty darn good, especially given the kind of flat terrain. It's good. And the only way to approach it, if the English want to come get me, is they got to go through this, choke point of a ford, or maybe a little dinky local bridge, across the Gironde, and then they enter this kind of wedge of land that I totally control and am behind this lovely ditch. What kind of idiot would do that? So this is a great encampment, but then of course there is an idiot who will do it, and that's Talbot.
Yeah, this is what we generally don't say. Assume the stupid.
You should
Uh,
never. I say
and,
this in my books. No man is a fool. No man is a fool. I don't know how many
well,
times I've written it, and then
yeah,
then I'm standing there on this battlefield. And I'm like, this guy's an idiot.
and I don't think he is, but we can get that in a moment. I think that Talbot is doing something. I don't think he can think. I don't know whether he thinks he can win. I don't know but he's doing something. The only thing he really can do, maybe, just maybe, he's never, because Talbot's been in England for a while. He's been putting down rebellions against Henry VI and so forth in England for a while. So maybe, just maybe, he doesn't understand that artillery now has changed, and that someone who knows artillery and has perhaps as many as 200 guns is going to be a formidable opponent as well. Not even mattering that there is essentially a moat in front of him. And that's what it is. It's not, the term is the same, but in French, fosse. But this is a big fosse. This is what we would call a moat if there was a stone fortification behind it.
You, yeah, we argued about this on the field, and we're probably going to argue about it in a minute over what the heck Talbot is thinking here. But okay, let's kind of step through it. Bureau has got some couple hundred more guns. What kind of guns are we looking at?
We're looking at field guns. By 1450, we're talking about these aren't the big bombards that are big siege guns, and I'm not entirely certain. There are some listings of what guns they are. They usually are smaller ones. The Culverin, which are either handheld or mounted on a mount, or serpentine. These are the new guns that are coming into play. They'll in the next 50 years, these are guns going to be developing into the actual fortification guns. Serpentine and Crapaud are almost the same at this point in time. But what they're field guns. The purpose of these guns is not not just to attack forts. The fortifications, they've got bigger guns for that. This is the purpose of these are to attack men stupid enough, and then I don't want to use the term again, to attack them.
Yeah, anti-personnel artillery. You don't want to run up against a line of a couple hundred anti-personnel artillery. That's a rule. You shouldn't do that. Now, as you said, maybe Talbot, doesn't know. Nobody with him knows. Maybe he's not stupid so much as he is ignorant. Maybe he's also, it appears, he's probably outnumbered. Bureau has got numbers there too. So Bureau's got probably more dudes. He's got all these guns in a really good defensive position. And Talbot decides, you know what? I'm going in. And he decides to run into him. Now, again, whether or not there was a retreat, we don't know.
Yeah, I doubt it. I can't see why Bureau would retreat at that time. But he does have horses. So Bureau has about 200 horse on a hill behind the Gironde, behind the Roman road. He has about 200 horses. And you and I and Bob talked about whether this could have been what he's seen. The dust is the dust that they are making
That
as they arrive on the battlefield.
that's one possibility. The one of the sources says that this is actually the dust is the camp followers who are leaving the encampment because they think a battle is imminent, and so they're kind of getting out of the way. Which that would make sense.
That would make a lot of
That
sense.
would make a
Yes,
lot
and
of sense. The cavalry um, that Kelly is mentioning, they are sort of across the river and then up on a hillside. We think. I mean, this is the sort of traditional account of the battle that we're talking about here. Are up on these heights on the other side of the Roman road. So if Talbot went up the Roman road, he'd be caught between this high ground cavalry and the French position on the other side of the river that potentially could actually with cannon disturb his lines as he tries to go up the Roman road. So again, he's got a really good position here. It doesn't appear, we can't find any evidence that Talbot knows there is this cavalry up on this hill, which is again weird. This is the hill that
he should have.
overlooks Castillon. How?
And they can't put 200 men in a forest and hide them like that. Uh, but once again, he doesn't have ground intelligence, does he?
Yeah, which he should. This is ostensibly English land. They're the ones who said, "Please come out and help us." How is he not getting good reconnaissance information? Is really, really strange. It's also a little bit strange what that cavalry is doing, unless Bureau thinks that Talbot is going to come marching up the Roman road, which could have been a possibility. So let's say Talbot marches up that Roman road, bypasses the French. He could circle around and entrap the French from the between his own force and Castillon-le-Bataille, right? Force them into a position there. That could have been a good move that Talbot would make, and maybe Bureau thinking, well, maybe he'll pull that off. I'll have his horses up here. That'll prevent that. If so, that's not what Talbot tries.
No,
That's not
no.
what he tries.
And it may be that he can't cross the river, and he knows he can't cross the Gironde, and so that he doesn't choose that route to approach the battlefield at all. And then maybe he does know there's horse on the hill, and he can't have his troops outflanked
Yeah,
as they're marching up the hill. I mean, there's a lot of different possibilities. Nobody tells us exactly
yeah,
what the thought process is here. Talbot chooses to march along the Dordogne, so underneath the field fortification,
yeah. Crosses
which
at
can then
this
attack.
little narrow crossing, so he passes through this bottleneck. The French, for whatever reason, decide not to hit him at that point. They decide to just wait for him to get to the encampment, which I find a little bit weird. So the French decide to allow Talbot to, again, this is kind of like the standard account, to cross the little river, march all the way up parallel, in fact, to their encampment along the Dordogne, form up ranks, and then charge into their position. Which is about a quarter mile ish
Yeah,
from the Dordogne River to the start of the French ditch, we'll call it.
yeah.
So within that quarter mile, Talbot arranges all his men, lines everybody up, high fives all around, give a speech. The French apparently just watch all this the whole bloody time,
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
I think
and then
I think
he
that's some.
charges.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
and then the charge.
Yeah, I think that's some of the brilliance of Bureau here. We're often because Talbot is such a major character because of the way he's going to end up. Um, and because we don't understand the strategy or the tactics that he's dealing with here, strategy in the whole campaign. But I think Bureau recognizes with his troops. He says, "Okay, don't get anxious. They've got to come and get us. We have more in numbers." So, and they can see it's pretty flat land. Talbot is not hiding his forces, so that the French can see them behind their field fortification, and there's no, nobody jumps up and says, "Let's go with a unit and go out and attack them." They wait patiently, and I think one of the reasons that Bureau is so successful is that he knows patience is going to bring him Talbot, or Talbot's going to retreat.
So this is, you would say kind of like, don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes kind of thing.
Yeah.
That the supreme confidence in position, and in gunpowder, which, yeah, I could buy that. I could buy that. Absolutely. And Talbot does indeed order a charge, right into the face, into the teeth of these guns, and fails.
Fails.
I mean, it's a what the battle supposedly lasts like an hour, which is kind of shocking that they would have kept smashing against this rock, wave after wave. But ultimately, as the English are trying to smash through all this gunfire, this Breton cavalry comes sweeping around, and just crashes into the English right. And at that point, it's game over. They just get swept up.
Yeah.
And Talbot bites it.
Yes, Talbot bites it, and he bites it fairly far away from the field fortification. So I could see the hour being the English trying to regroup, trying to recoup. At that point, the British, the Breton cavalry, and now some of Bureau's forces that can be moved, being not his guns, are coming forward and out of at the complex and pushing the English back towards the Dordogne. And so that's probably what takes the majority of time, if an hour is there. It's a really interesting letter, and I'm not sure we know exactly who wrote it, but it comes off a French side, and it talks about that whenever a cannon was being fired by the Bureau, cannoneers in this battle, they were hitting two or three. They were knocking down two or three Englishmen, and you kind of get the idea that the English are tightly packed. They're trying to make this charge coming through, and a cannon shot will just knock two or three of them out. And then it's the old thing we think of in more modern wars, like Waterloo or Yorktown or something, where you just march in a line and keep filling in for the poor sucker who gets mowed down by gunfire.
Yeah, yeah. The cannonballs are probably bouncing their way all through the ranks. Yeah, the reason Kelly says we think Talbot fell a pretty good distance from the line is there is a monument today to Talbot that, at least traditionally, is where Talbot fell, and it is very close to the Dordogne, where that is. It's like in somebody's backyard essentially. It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
You just pull off and wave at people or whatever. I'm here to take pictures of this monument to this dude who bid it here. I would say that our friend Bob would be most distraught if we did not note that Talbot's body was exhumed later, much more recently, and it was discovered that he had what living in his brain, in his skull.
Oh, that's right. He had worms in there, didn't he?
A mouse. A mouse.
A mouse. That's right. A mouse.
He had a mouse.
That was a mouse.
A mouse living in his skull when they dug him up, and if that doesn't explain it all, then nothing does.
Never go into battle when your brain has been replaced by rodent.
Ratatouille lied, everybody. Ratatouille lied. That's only good for cooking, not for warfare.
That's in that lost book of Vegetius. Never go into battle when a rodent has taken over your skull.
Yeah. It's as I said kind of at the beginning, this is such a strange battle because how do you explain what Talbot is thinking? I mean, when you're on the ground and you kind of see what this was, I think I've called it before a death trap, because yeah, you once you cross this little river onto this kind of wedge shape of land, like there's not really a way out of this thing. You've cast your lot, and you're gonna fight or die. That to some degree explains why the fighting takes so long, because there's nowhere to run. You can't cross the river behind you. If you tried to bolt east, you're going to run into this Chris cavalry that's coming up that flank. If you try to go the other direction, you got this little bottleneck of a ford or whatever. And at this point, probably French are going to be starting to run you down. So yeah, there's nowhere to go once you engage. So why would you have ever crossed this little river to put yourself in that position? And the only thing I can come up with is a complete and utter failure of field reconnaissance. A complete and utter failure. Because if you know what's there, you don't do this. There's no excuse for it. There is no reason that you would do this that I can fathom. I just can't.
No.
So I think that's what it is.
And you're not alone there. You're not alone. I mean, Tony Pollard, in his biography on John Talbot, he talks about pride, coming into play, and David Nicole in his little book talks about also a bit more of the pride of position. But that's usually what we label the French with. We usually say the silly French charges at Crecy, the silly French charges at Ashgrove, the silly French charges at Nicopolis. We don't usually put this on the English side. I'm not entirely satisfied that it can just be. I think a large part of it is field reconnaissance is terrible. Intelligence is terrible in this battle. But I also wonder, and neither you nor Bob really liked this when I mentioned it, and I'm still, it's only a thought out there. Is Talbot just looking to have a victory, even if it's just getting the guys to run away? If he can pull off a victory, go back, Bordeaux is still safe for the next 2 or 3 years. And so what we're not looking for is the winning of the war, which everybody wants Talbot to do, is to try to be out there and a force to win the war. But we're merely looking at something where he's going to stave this off in his very old warhorse way. He's going to stave off this final defeat for another few years.
Well, what I would say is I don't disagree with you one bit as to why he has marched out to this area. Yeah, that's why, because he needs something to kind of stave this off, and at the moment he thinks he's got kind of an upper hand and can do this. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't explain marching into this land. That doesn't explain that. And that's the problem with it. Is that explains why did you leave Bordeaux? Okay, that's why. Sure, I could buy that. Why do you march into this position and take this action? No, that doesn't have a bit to do with it.
Why fight a battle? I mean, why fight a battle at all?
Or fight it in this way, right? This is, and the only explanation I can get is he's just that ignorant of what he is facing. And given the terrain, and that this is basically home ground, that's just staggering and begs for explanation. How is the failure this great? Because your only other option is he knows and does it anyway, right?
Yeah, he knows and does it anyway. The adding in, and let's put this in because it's tradition by this point, and that is Talbot is also not wearing armor. If we want to accept what most historians have said, and I mean this is in the original sources, so I'm not going to just say this is modern historians who are trying to rationalize this idiotic move. But Talbot has made a promise. Now, this promise would have been made back in Joan of Arc days when she captures him at the Battle of Patay. But he has made a promise to the French that he will never wear armor against them again.
Yeah, supposedly.
Yeah. But and if he's not, that is truly the most stupid. That truly would put him in the position where I think, okay, yes, a mouse has taken over your brain.
Yeah, and we argued about a little bit. There's no answer to it. These stories about him not wearing armor, does it just mean that he's not wearing a breastplate, right? And is he still in mail, or something like that? Okay,
Or brigandine or something
right,
like that.
right. I mean, is he kind of looking for a loophole around this promise? Maybe not. But yeah, it's a cool story, I guess, that he. No, I made this promise I wouldn't wear armor, so I'm not going to do it. Supposedly, he's the only guy that remains mounted on the English side, and in fact is taken out when one of these artillery pieces takes out his horse, that then falls on him, and so that's he's trapped. I don't think that works because
No.
that doesn't work if the monument's in the right spot. If the monument is in the right spot, that story can't be true because it means that the cannon, the artillery piece would have needed to have hit at a quarter mile.
A quarter mile, yeah, and far too. Yeah, we're talking almost a kilometer,
Yeah,
and
that ain't happening.
far too far. No.
That ain't happening. So
I mean, I can understand his horse being brought down and then him being finished off by the French.
yeah,
French are not giving any quarter here. Now, Bureau is not. We don't have any evidence that Bureau said don't take prisoners, but they're certainly not taking prisoners. Anybody.
yeah,
You would think Talbot would be recognized, especially not wearing armor.
yeah.
You'd think he'd be recognized on the field, that somebody would say, "Ooh, payday."
Old dude on a horse, and
Uh,
instead somebody supposedly takes a battle axe to him. I don't know if the bones had evidence of that or not. It's actually
I don't think anybody's studied the bones. It'd be interesting to find out. Be, because it was later after the battle that they're exhumed and brought to England, because his heart gets somewhere else, as other leaders have that same tradition. But it'd be very fascinating to find out if any observation of the bones were made at the time of exhumation. I haven't seen it.
well, they had a mouse in his skull.
That's
We
true.
had that.
That's
I mean,
true.
we got
And they
that.
gave up after that. We think we know what killed him. It wasn't a blow to the head; it was a mouse to the head.
This mouse is a problem. So yeah, in the end, it's the end for Talbot and for thousands with him, and this is pretty much it for English military resistance in Bordeaux and in Aquitaine, Gascony, which is thus the reason that this is kind of the last battle of the supposed 100 Years' War, because voila, it's done. Again, I've got problems with that, but we can talk about that on some other day. But this is the reason Castillon is so important.
Yeah, Edward the Fourth. I mean, another decade, or another, well, 1471. Edward the Fourth is going to return. There's going to be constant. He's returning with a small force. He leaves without any conflict. We've got other examples where, Margaret of York marries Charles of Burgundy, and again, this kind of English willingness to come back. It's never very strong. Yeah, this is it. Once Bordeaux falls, there's really not much English effort to regain anything until we get a century later.
Yeah,
So
I mean, and they keep Calais,
and they keep going.
and
But the next one of any significance is Henry VIII's attack of Tournai and others in the north, and that's not even a war in comparison to what's happening in the Italian wars, of course. So it's this is it. If you want to talk about decisive battle, how many are there? This one kind of decides.
this one's pretty big. Yeah. So it's one of the things we love about what we do is we have some answers, but we don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
But
At least this one, we don't have a lot of doubt on the battlefield.
we don't. We don't. I know everybody's like, Mike's going to screw all this stuff up. No, there's not a lot of reason. I mean, the only reason doubted is just like, are you kidding? Talbot did this, right? There's just like, huh? But there's not, as far as, evidence or anything like that, there's not really any reason to think this isn't where it was.
Yeah.
I think that the mapping of it is usually wrong, because I think the battle happened more towards one end of this field than the other.
I think, yeah, I agree
But
with you on
that's,
that.
when we're on the field, I was going through kind of like where the tree lines were and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of pieces to make you think the traditional mapping of it might be incorrect. But yeah, the location seems about right. And the outcome, pretty much no doubt on that.
Yeah, pretty much no doubt on either of those. In fact, I think this is the one when your drone came back and said, "Dude, this is the battlefield."
Yeah,
It flew over, it came back and said, "Okay, put this to rest. You're not going to find it any other place. This is it."
got some
Uh,
dynamite drone footage. It was a hot
it
day
is,
though. It was a
and
hot day. Ooh.
a hot day. Yeah, it was a hot day. It was a hot day for us. It was a hot day for them too. uh, but you know, and the finality is there's not much life left in the Hundred Years' War after this. There could be things that are going on. There could be certainly some diplomatics, some sword swinging, but it's not too much longer after 1453 that we've got the English involved in their own civil war, the Wars of the Roses, and then the French get involved in a smaller one that's over more quickly in the War of the Public Weal, before various aspects of the French start fighting. Burgundy fighting the Swiss and the Alsatians and so forth. It is a different. To me that really says that they don't have anything to fear about from the English anymore.
Yeah.
This is the gasp, and yeah, and Lord Talbot dead on the battlefield.
Yep. That's it. Say la more, as the case may
Yeah,
be.
Salem Moore off to Valhalla.
Yeah. Yeah.
If anybody deserves Valhalla in England at this point in time, it's got to be Talbot. Yeah, heading out as a 60-year-old man to lead battle against odds and dying with his sword in his hand. Yeah, yeah. The Valkyries were probably appearing in the heavens.
There you go. Well. Look, I hope everybody enjoyed this discussion of the Battle of Castillon. Please do join us next time, because we are going to be headed not too far away in time, but definitely a little bit further away in terms of geography, because we're going to be talking about the Battle of Aljubarrota in 1385, which is a very cool battle, where we basically know where that one is, and we'll talk about why that is, and the ramifications of that, because it's really cool.
It is a cool battle.
Very, very cool. But before we go, I have to make a call out, because look, in 2 episodes, we got Aljubarrota next, but the episode after that is another Q&A. And we have some questions left over from our previous rounds, but look, add to the hopper, people. Send us questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's still questions we know would have come if we could have been 3 hours in that one at least.
Oh yeah,
just from the questions of the people. So those of you who are there and have not grown tired of us by now, please send those questions in that we didn't ask. We had some really good ones there, and those of you who haven't heard the live broadcast, it was fun. I kept looking at the audience instead of the microphone, so I was not as good as I could have been. But the fun part was the questions.
Yeah, it was great. We had a great time. It was fantastic. So yeah, if you'd like to ask us a question or there, please send it to us. If you weren't there, it doesn't matter. Ask us questions. Send them in, please. And as ever,
and our Portuguese fans out there are the ones who really said you got to do Aljubarrota.
Yes.
So we're in part answering them with this next show.
We heard you, and we're doing it. And as ever, a reminder: this podcast is sponsored by Medievalist.net. So the best way to support us, other than buying our individual books, of course, is to join their Patreon at patreon.com/medievalists. That's also the absolute best place to drop us a line if you have questions for our Q&As. Thank you for listening, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers.